I think fewer and fewer people are able to have as the world globalizes. So it's lovely
So
to
true.
capitalize on that
So true.
chance. It's certainly something I'm attracted to, but of course,
Yes.
who knows where that's still possible.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm sure there are places still. Right. So you hit the ground running. You said so. You start learning Pastaza Kichwa in earnest, and then you focus in on these ideophones. You mentioned these sound symbolic or iconic utterances.
Right.
Indeed, sometimes linked with the concept of onomatopoeia in especially like literary studies use this a lot. I think. I have some videos about onomatopoeia and about iconicity in general, both in world languages and also specifically in Turkish, which I can put in the description as well. But just to hone in on that for a second, what got you interested in those, in these sound symbolic utterances, and was that early on? Was that something that just developed out of the field work itself, or did you come kind of with the preconceived idea of working on these?
I love that question. Thanks for asking. So when I started working as an undergraduate on Kichwa, the grammar that we used mentioned them as part of the language. It didn't give a lot of attention to them, but it did mention that they were used. And I just immediately became fascinated by them. And I don't know if I even consciously realized why I was fascinated, but I have had a background in the visual arts, and I've always been interested in visual representation, filmmaking, and things like that. So I think something in me thought that these words were something like an imagetic way of expressing oneself. And so, although I'd given up the arts, I felt as if, in a way, I was coming back to something like that, or imagetic language, with the study of ideophones.
Yeah, imagetic and performative, I think,
and
too, right?
Yeah.
Is what you and others have said.
Yeah.
And so there's a kind of a performing arts aspect
there
to them.
Absolutely is.
And I also have a theatre background, and so for me that was also something very attractive about these things. I'm sure that resonated on many levels with you. Yeah.
On so many levels. And I can't really explain it. It was just one of these things that I've always been fascinated by, and I'm so glad that it's turned out to be so productive. It's gotten me into so many other it's actually helped me in so many other ways in my studies of linguistics. It's taken me into new terrain in phonology, into new terrain in semantics, into the latest thing now is neuroscience. So we started doing a neuroimaging study of ideophones.
I was very fortunate to be able to sit in on this for a bit and learn how it worked. It was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
As soon as that paper is out, we'll put a description in the, a link in the description as well here when that's out.
Good, thank you very much. I hope our results are exciting. I think they will be. But essentially, I'm interested in the idea that many people who study ideophones around the world, they're sometimes called memetics in Japanese, or ideophones in the Africanist tradition, or expressives in the Southeast Asian tradition.
Echoics even too.
Echoic words.
Yeah.
A number of people have actually claimed that they don't have any semantics, that these are words which are essentially meaningful only in specific contexts, that they have no semantics on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested in debunking that idea with I've done an analysis of ideophones using semantic features, and now I'm trying to see if these neuroimaging studies will in any way back up what I think might be going on in the brain when people hear ideophones with certain semantic features. So that's the idea behind that study.
Which is something that's fascinating because, of course, it links full circle to lab studies of sound symbolism with made-up words.
Yes.
Many people may be familiar with the Kiki-Buba experiments.
Yes.
I say experiments because actually there's a whole series of them using it, but of course the initial ones by Köhler with Maluma Tekete and Buba Kiki with Ramachandran and Hubbard, etc. And this idea that you can have this very naturalistic kind of field work approach to documenting sound symbolism in language, but on the other, sort of isolate certain variables experimentally.
Yes.
And these have been very separate tracks until recently. And these tracks have been united by my former MA supervisor, Mark Dingemonse, in the Netherlands, and also a bit in my yet unpublished MA thesis. And And what I like about this, though, is that this actually takes it and makes it even more naturalistic than it was in either of those two, because it's real recordings of sort of real Kichwa idiophones, with the intonation, with everything, with the sort of human context in a way that they deserve, and yet isolated in a very intelligent way, so as to be experimentally viable as well.
And Mark has, of course, been a pioneer in this field of study, with his emphasis on the importance of intonation beyond, just beyond the segmental level of sound.
Which his initial study did, of course, actually manipulate as well, I should say, to give it very much due credit. Yeah.
Fantastic study. So I've been very inspired by Mark's work, and I think it's really important to do more of these kinds of cognitive studies among people who are not from Western educated, industrialized, rich democratic countries.
Indeed. Some of you may be familiar with the WEIRD acronym, which is what that spells out, right? That it's abnormal and yet is also, because of being Western educated, industrialized, rich, and indeed democratic.
Democratic, yeah. So that's one thing that this study is offering. Another thing, right away, just preliminarily, I can say that the study was designed in a way that we wanted to compare how people would react to ordinary words. So a list of ordinary words, a short list of ordinary words were heard, and then a list of idiophones, just scrambled in different orders by a program called PsychoPy. So it doesn't matter whether it's a sound idiophone or a motion idiophone or a visual idiophone, they were all scrambled in different orders. But what we noticed right away was that when people heard the ordinary words, they would often react by repeating the words out loud.
Fascinating.
But many of them, most of them I would say, when they heard the idiophones, there was no attempt to repeat the idiophone. It was almost as if the word, the way it sounded, was meant to evoke something, but not necessarily be a conventional representation of the meaning.